Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Gabriel Santos from gfsantos.com. And in today's video, I want to go back in the archives a little bit and share with you guys what my life was like when I was smoking weed every day and when I was really kind of stuck in the pattern of weed addiction, so to speak, or dependency, or using weed as a crutch, however you like to call it. And the purpose of sharing this, the story of what it was like when I used to smoke weed is so that hopefully you can relate and understand that I used to go through something similar as you. And really just on a personal level for me to remember what that time was like, because it seems like ages ago, when in fact I lived that life for almost 8 years, and it hasn't even been a full year since I transformed my entire life to what it is now. But yeah, so let's start with I'm gonna mix in some good stuff and some bad stuff, so to speak. On a good level, smoking weed has always been awesome. Like the high itself. Whether I play video games, or I get introspective, and God, let me put my hat down. Whether I get introspective, or just if you've smoked weed before, and you likely have, you understand what it's like to to smoke weed and enjoy it. And that's always fun. You get to meet a lot of people that I would have not met otherwise. But because weed is often a bonding tool in the similar way that food is, or sports are, or cigarettes or alcohol, partying, whatever. I hung around an eclectic group of people. Now, on the negative side, I really didn't know how to be myself. And to be a little more detailed, like, I used to identify as socially anxious. I know a lot of people who smoke weed, or a number of people who smoke weed, they do so because they have anxiety. And a long story short, it took a spiritual revolution for me to not just get over weed addiction, but also for me to become unleashed as a person, regardless of the weed stuff. And what I mean by spiritual revolution is that it is my opinion. Sorry about that, guys. It is my opinion and my experience that an unaware relationship with the mind and the emotions is the unconscious root of a lot of mental health issues like depression and anxiety, paranoia. And because the truth is that even before I ever smoked weed, I identified as socially anxious. Yet here I am today. I smoke weed, less than a handful of times a month, and I hardly ever experience social anxiety. Do I still experience, periods of awkwardness with a person? Sure. Do I, but I don't personally feel a victim in social situations to a feeling in my body that many call anxiety. Anyways, moving forward, what it was like to smoke weed. It's really not the smoking weed every day that I'm touching on right now. It's the experience of being addicted to something and not being able to have control. That really sucked. Yeah, like it really does suck, guys, to be And I don't even like to use the word addicted, because addiction is an emotionally charged word that often people can feel offended by, because there's a sense of like wrongness, or even like just like ickiness, like, oh, I'm addicted, or you're addicted. It's so take the word addiction out of your mind. Sorry, take the word addiction out of your mind and replace it more so with emotionally dependent or psychologically dependent. And what that means is that a certain activity, in this case getting high off weed, brings so much emotional or mental value or solution to a problem or a pain, that it is the sole solution for that pain. And so for a lot of people, that pain comes in the form of stress, or that pain comes in the form of anxiety, or that pain comes in the form of thoughts that they don't like hearing, and the emotions that come with those thoughts that they don't like feeling. Whether it's, something as serious as your parents going through a divorce, or something as minor as like you can't handle being in a big group of people. Oftentimes smoking weed changes our state, our emotional state and our mental state, so so we don't experience suffering anymore on a mental and emotional level. And so this kind of ties back to the whole spiritual revolution thing, where if you've ever, come across or dive deep into spiritual texts or spiritual teachings, they say suffering is of the mind, and suffering is also just a choice, meaning we don't have to suffer on a mental and emotional level. There's a book called A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, about a true story of a man who went through the Holocaust as a victim, as a one of the Jews who was victimized by Hitler, and he shares his story of what it was like being once a free man and then being turned into essentially a slave, an animal, in these concentration camps. And to ruin the book for you, basically, at that point, as a freaking prisoner in a concentration camp, you're stripped of all your human rights. You essentially have no choice in terms of how you want to live and what you want to do. And what this man Viktor Frankl discovered is that although he may not have had the choice of like eating a steak tonight, or sleeping in a bed that's comfortable, or even wearing clothes, he did have the internal choice to be happy and not to suffer from circumstance. And point being, going back to spiritual revolution, is that suffering is a choice, and being happy is a choice as well. And it takes somewhat of a spiritual revolution for a person to really become aware of that fact, and then to train yourself to when you experience suffering. And when I mean suffering, something as simple as like, God, when you're in traffic on the freeway and it's like, God damn it, this is the worst thing ever. For some people, the stress and the emotions that come from being in traffic on the street like carries on for the rest of their day. Same thing goes for, like something as simple as, I don't know, like you spilled something on your shirt, or your brother doesn't, always leaves the toilet seat up, Like, there's so much in the world that can cause upset and negative emotions. Essentially, that's what I mean by suffering. And if, you want to be someone who has more control in their life in terms of their emotions, then you need to be someone, it is required to be someone that takes full responsibility for their emotional state. And when I was addicted to weed, I wasn't that kind of person. And I needed weed in order to reduce suffering in my life. And so a big part of why I am no longer emotionally dependent on weed is because I've trained myself to reduce my own suffering by myself, oftentimes without any other substance or activity. That's why meditation is so popular in the spiritual practices, because it is the practice of observing the mechanisms that cause suffering, mainly the mind. And so oftentimes, probably hundreds of times throughout the day, I'll have all kinds of thoughts just like you, and particularly when they are negative or wild thoughts, I like literally take a moment and I'm like, that's an interesting thought. Like literally all kinds of crazy shit, guys. My mind isn't just uttering like great positive stuff all the time. So like all kinds of crazy thoughts, so yeah. So last piece of advice, if you made it this far in the video, do yourself a favor, for yourself and everyone around you, to take full responsibility for your mind and to master your mind. You master your mind and you've won the game. Doesn't matter if you have $1 million now. Doesn't matter if your life looks the way you want it to now. If you have your mind mastered, and I'm not saying I'm a master by any means, but I know for a fact that I've mastered my mind and my emotions to a degree that not to fucking put myself anywhere on a ranking system, but I know that most of the population has not cultivated a relationship to their mind and emotions to the point I have and many other people have. And the point with that statement is that it is to your benefit to master your mind. It is to your benefit to master your mind. Because the truth is that the moment is all there is, literally the moment is all there is. For your whole life, you're just going to be in the moment. That doesn't mean memories aren't valuable or your experiences aren't valuable, and that doesn't mean that planning a future isn't valuable. All those things are valuable, but your happiness and your ability to be out of suffering only exists in the moment. And the only thing really blocking you from being in the moment is the relationship you have to your mind, because your mind is gonna fucking spit all kinds of shit at you every day, every minute, every second. Happy stuff, negative stuff, okay? And your awareness beyond your own mind is where your freedom lies, really. Anyways, guys, that turned a course that I wasn't expecting, but yeah, that's just the message for today. Hope it found you well. I will see y'all tomorrow. I look kind of chubs because I had a lot of pizza while I was down in Rome. But it's good to be back home. Anyways, guys, I will see you guys all in the next video. Until then, peace.